is the Sensitive CEO Show, igniting sensitive entrepreneurs to grow your heart-centered business. I'm your host, Rose Cox, and this podcast shares with you inspiring and thought-provoking conversations for sensitive entrepreneurs wanting to grow a sustainable online business in a way that feels exciting and aligned with your soul. Along with my carefully curated expert guests, we share science-backed advice, proven strategies, and the systems we use to succeed in our businesses and our lives as highly sensitives, introverts, and empaths. And by the way, if you would like to be updated on when each episode is released, feel free to subscribe to the short and sweet newsletter. You'll also get weekly recommendations and tips, especially for HSPs, empaths, and introverts. To subscribe, pop on over to the website sensitiveceo.show or rosecox.com/pod. Now on to today's show. Hey, it's Rose and welcome to another episode of the Sensitive CEO Show. And in today's episode, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Casey Lightbody. Casey is a business growth strategist and marketing mentor for intuitive, conscious, impact-driven women. Welcome, Casey. Wonderful to talk to you again today.
Rose, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would love, there was a very short intro that I did, but I would love for you to share with the audience a bit more about your background, who it is that you work with, what you do and everything.
Absolutely, Rose. So I call myself a seasoned entrepreneur. I feel like I've been around the block for a long time. So my background is in marketing and relationship management. So I followed the status quo. I fell into corporate purely by kind of accident. That's what you did, right? And that was back in the UK. We lived in the UK at the time. And when we immigrated to Australia, I said to my husband, it's now or never. I want to take the leap into starting my own business. It had always been a dream of mine, Rose, ever since I was a little girl. And he said, okay, the time's right, we'll start your business. And so I started a business, and started my business, which was a marketing consulting business for professional service-based businesses, because that had been my background. I'd been in finance and engineering and mainly accounting, mainly professional services. So I thought, well, I'll just start the business. It's what I know, right? And that business grew pretty quickly. We hit 6 figures in about 18 months. And the consultancy turned into an agency. And suddenly, before I knew it, I had a team, I had multiple clients, I was juggling all the things around running an agency, doing all the digital marketing strategy and implementation for professional service-based businesses. And one day I was sitting at this very desk, Rose, and I looked at myself and I was like, what have I created? Here I was thinking that I was living the dream. And in fact, it was a nightmare because I was working crazy hours, not doing anything that I loved, burning the candle at both ends. And here I was thinking that I wanted to start my business for the freedom and flexibility and fun, to be a mum for my kids, to actually create my own financial autonomy, or all those kind of things that you do to start a business. And it was only then, Rose, that I realized, hold on a second, I've created a business that's completely misaligned to who I was and my personality. And it was only then that I realized, number one, how introverted I was. Number two, how highly sensitive I was. 3, how empathic I was. I was like, well, holy moly, no wonder what I've created isn't in alignment with me, because it's not who I am. And so I made a massive decision back then to burn that business to the ground. In hindsight, of course, it was a sellable asset. I obviously didn't even think about that. I just want to be done with this, right? And so I closed the doors on that business, and I kept one of my consulting clients, my very favorite one. And I went back to the drawing board and I said, hold on a second. If I want to truly make an impact in the world, if I want to create my own business, I want to do it on my terms, and I want to take it into consideration, all of who I am, so that I can actually create a business that I love. And so that was the start of the Quiet Collective. And so we started the business 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not sure exactly, around 4 or 5 years ago. And now we help highly sensitive, introverted women, but those who are really deeply connected to themselves, Rose, those conscious, impact-driven women who really want to actually build a business on their terms. They're not interested in the cookie-cutter formulas or following the status quo, but it's all about coming back into their own quiet, which is why the name, the Quiet Collective. It's about coming into their quiet, trusting themselves to actually create successful, sustainable businesses. So we're all about exponential results, but at the same time, it's got to be sustainable, because if we are not prioritizing our energy management and putting it front and center as highly sensitive, introverted women, we're setting ourselves up for failure. So that's the work that I get fortunate enough to do now, is supporting women just like me to scale and grow their businesses.
Wow, I love that story. And I love that you, well, not burnt the business down, but that you actually were brave enough to make that decision to let go of a really successful business. Good on you.
Yeah, it was a huge decision, one of the biggest decisions I've had to make, Rose. But, in hindsight, what a blessing it's been, right? And so sometimes we do have to let things go. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in business, is actually having the courage to let go of the things without having to cling so tightly to things, forcing them to happen, or, hoping that there's going to get a result, but being okay to let go with things and trusting your gut that it will be okay to let things go as well, right?
I don't know why I'm thinking of this quote that I love. It's not a quote, it's a saying: nature abhors a vacuum. And it's like, when you let go, good things come in. But if you hold on to things, there's no space for the good things to come in.
Absolutely, absolutely. That has been one of my biggest lessons in the last 5 years, is this piece around, really being able to surrender, because it's in that place of the unknown that creation happens, right? And so I think so often we are led to believe that we've got to be focused and we've got to be, strategic, and we've got to be doing all the time, right? And especially as women who are juggling all the things, it's so hard for us to actually take that time to proactively slow down and listen, right?
Yeah, definitely. We're very good at multitasking.
Absolutely. Someone who's always struggled with that in my life, it's been one of my biggest lessons, right? Stop multitasking, Casey. We can do it all, but it's not for the best. It's not for our best selves, right?
Yeah, exactly. Especially when we're highly sensitive and introverted.
Yeah, absolutely.
So your topic today, which I'm going to read out, I know it's in the show notes and everything, how I went from 10K months to my first 100K month in my business without hustling or hiding behind an extroverted mask. I just love that. And I don't know where to start, what to ask you around that. So I guess my question is, where did you start? Like, how did you get to that stage of 100K months?
Yeah, Rose, this has been absolutely massive for me, right? Because I think, again, having a background in marketing specifically and in business, and being very ambitious, driven type A, I've been very in my masculine, right? So I'm very in my doing. And little did I know that in that doing, I was numbing out a whole lot of emotions, right? And so one of the things that I really committed to, and it was probably just as COVID was hitting, I remember walking. One of my favorite things to do is walking, and we were just chatting offline about that. And there was this moment in time, Rose, that I realized, hold on a second. Here I am, Casey. I've created this business. We've seen some tremendous success. We've run summits with women like headlining Amy Porterfield and Selena Sue and Jada Selna. We've seen that success, and yet I still feel like I'm playing small. And with the impact of the pandemic and the uncertainty that so many people are facing, I thought to myself, I'm equipped to actually help women create, start, build, grow, scale their businesses. Why am I playing so small? And so it was this moment in time, Rose, where I went from logically knowing my expertise, and I think so. I don't know if your listeners will agree with this, but I was playing in that imposter complex all the time. They're not good enough, even though I had 20 years of experience, and even though I had all the accolades and all that kind of stuff, and I had the actual tangible results. My little voice in my head was still saying, "Casey, you're not good enough," right? And so one of the things, and even though I logically knew it, and I actually have a gold box behind me that is actually my treasure chest that reminds me of all the amazing achievements and successes that I've had in my life and in my business. But it was that moment in time, Rose, where I was like, I'm not just going to logically know this, I'm going to embody it and integrate it. And so that was the start of the work that I did around actually integrating this piece around confidently owning my superpowers, of which introversion and high sensitivity is part of that, right? And so that was one of the first steps, is this piece around confidence. And I think as you step up in confidence, Rose, I talk about this with my clients, is when you are in your power and you have this confidence, immediately you actually become a magnet for other people, because the more that you can actually show up in your power, people want to be like you. You inspire other people. And so that happened. And so part of the results that we've had in the business is really me doing the inner work around this. And really the starting point was actually integrating this piece of the confidence to actually own my expertise and my quiet power. That's one of the steps. I mean, we can go into so many others, but I'm happy to kind of be guided by you here.
I wanted to ask about your goal box. I love that. I've got something similar that I share with my clients, which is a client success journal. And I get them to put all of their successes from their clients that people have shared, or anything. They might have had a conversation with their coach and so many things. But I love your idea of a physical goal box. Is that something that you pop things in regularly?
Absolutely, I do. So I started this when my mentor, it was quite a few years ago, and she said to me, Casey, I want you to write a list of everything you've achieved in your life and your business. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do that. And so I literally wrote down this list, and I went through A4, and sometimes it was really challenging. I had to go digging because I was stuck in this loop of not enoughness, right? And go digging for all these things. And so that was the first thing that I put in my gold box, Rose. And then since then, I now put so much stuff in there, right? I put in, and I'll go through it. I'll print off testimonials, I'll print off emails, any handwritten cards that I get, any kind of photos that I want to remind myself of me speaking on stage, I'll print off and I'll pop it into that goal box just so that it actually reminds me in those moments that you're not feeling enough. I can actually pull that out and say, oh, well, hold on a second, remember that this happened, remember that happened. And what I love to, I'm going to add to this piece, because I think this is exactly what I get my clients to do too, is a success and celebrations journal, Rose. And I can't emphasize the importance of that enough, because energetically, again, the acknowledgement for yourself of the successes that you're having is vibrationally going to actually raise your energy levels too. So again, the more that you can practice this, and again, as women who are so kind of programmed into just doing it and then focusing on what's the next thing and more, when we can actually stop and actually acknowledge for ourselves the celebrations, it shifts vibrationally. And one of my clients, I mean, it was crazy. She was tied to her desk, right? Like literally, she felt like she had to be on all the time. And she had the most incredible opportunity. She was traveling around the world. And at this time, she was actually in Costa Rica. And she said, Casey, she's like, all I want to do is go and swim in the ocean. My favorite thing is swimming in the ocean. And I said, well, what about you give yourself a gift of celebration, that you close your laptop down at 3:00 in the afternoon and you go and celebrate by actually going to swim in the ocean, not because it's for fitness or any reason, but purely for the love and enjoyment of it, and that you're celebrating yourself, that you actually shut the laptop down. She messaged me the following day. She said, Casey, you're not going to believe it. I've just got an opportunity to actually present in workshops to a company that has over 80 employees. Now, this is someone who's just starting out in business. And I was like, this is what happens. Like the magic, and I don't want to get all woo-woo, Rose, on this too, right? But the thing is, this is what magically happens too, is the more that you can actually be in this space, in this energetic vibration, the more you actually attract it to you, which is, again, testament to the results that we've got this year in the business.
So that does make a lot of sense. It's actually stepping away to, I guess, rejuvenate as well. But it's an energetic thing, isn't it? It's with the magnetism as well, being having that magnet to draw the right people to you and the right opportunities. And
absolutely. And this is, I'm a business and I'm a business strategist. I'm a marketing coach. I'm all about the systems and the structure and the funnels and all that kind of stuff. But what I know to be true, and having seen the exponential results too, Rose, is that strategy is going to get you so far. And I think it's really important to have the foundational pieces that I feel are so missing in so much of the business world right now, is that we forget that and we jump to the shiny objects and all the, the latest fad tactic that's working in marketing, and we forget the foundational pieces. That's another whole story. But without the energetics piece, you are capped. You're actually going to hit a glass ceiling, because that's the thing that makes you immediately captivating. It makes you magnetic to your audience, is the way that you actually show up and be in the world. And that's the work ultimately at the end of the day, when we're looking for sustainable successes, coming back to ourselves over and over and over again, with radical self-responsibility, with self-trust, with confidence, with emotional intelligence, all the things that allow us to show up in our personal power.
Beautiful. And I know a lot of people, well, I'm presuming a lot of people listening to this podcast don't have a lot of confidence around themselves or around their business. Have you got any tips that you could share with them, Casey?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Because again, I was just sharing with a client this morning. I was on a coaching call and I said, you won't believe it, but it wasn't even that long ago that I hopped onto my first group coaching call and I realized it was video. And you've never seen someone press end so quickly, because I was so shy to be on video, right? Like, it's crazy to think, Rose. And so I just want to say that I completely get it. And wanting to put yourself out there, especially as you're starting a business, is a big challenge, especially for someone who prefers to be behind the scenes and who's, not wanting to be the spotlight and the show pony and the center of attention. But what I can say, certainly in my journey, is I've stretched my courage muscle. So I've really worked that courage muscle. And how I like to think of it is, it's not about taking these giant leaps out of your comfort zone. It's about expanding your capacity zone. I actually learned this term from a dear friend of mine, Beth Below, and she talked about this idea of a capacity zone. And how I like to think about it is this elastic band, right, Rose? So you want to actually stretch the elastic band a little bit, but not so much that it's going to snap. And so as you start to think about, and you think about, okay, well, what is the action that's so scary and I'm not feeling confident, right? Yes, the treasure box will help, and there's a whole piece around integrating, but there's also about taking action. And so the piece around taking action is, okay, what's that scary thing? What is a thing that I can do that's not so scary, but it's going to give me the butterflies, it's going to make me feel a little bit uncomfortable, but it's just going to stretch that elastic band a little bit so that it actually moves my comfort zone that next ladder up, right? And so that's what happened to me. Let's talk about the video, but let me talk about public speaking, because one of the worst fears of my life was public speaking, and even being on a podcast like this would have been terrifying for me. But speaking on stage was one of the things that I was terrified of. And back in the day, I was working with someone, she said, Casey, I would like you to run some workshops on LinkedIn. And I freaked. I was like, oh my gosh, talking in front of people, that's going to be so scary. And so I was like, okay, I'll do it. I said yes to the opportunity. And there were 3 people in the room, Rose. I was like, okay, I can do this. And gradually that 3 people turned to 10 people, turned to 15 people, turned to 20 people. And now I look back and I was like, well, a company flew me to Chile, to Santiago, and I stood on a stage in front of 300 people and I spoke. And, when I reflect back on that journey, it's all about stretching your courage muscle and taking the baby steps. And that's how I feel like you build your confidence.
I love that advice. It's gold, absolute gold. So you talk about leveraging our superpowers as sensitives and introverts and empaths. What are some ways that you could share with the audience on the best way to leverage them?
Yes, so I think that one of the things that we grow up to believe are that these are character flaws. I don't know how many of us have told, oh, Casey, you're too sensitive, stop crying, all the things, right, about that they're character flaws. And this piece around starting to actually recognize that there are, in fact, superpowers. Rose, is the work, right? And so how I like to teach this for my clients too is saying, okay, let's start to see what it is about your superpowers of introversion, sensitivity, empath. Being an empath is going to help you to actually show up better for your clients. And as they get to see that, this again really reinforces their confidence, because they start to see what great connectors there are. So again, even though we're introverts and we lone wolves and we prefer our own company, we actually make really great relationship builders. And the reason for that is because we have such great active listening skills, we're deeply introspective, all the things that actually go into making us who we are. And so that's the piece that I think is really, it's so important to integrate into yourself, is to start to actually say, okay, as an introvert, what are my superpowers and how are they allowing me to show up more effectively than other people, and starting to recognize those little nuggets for yourself is a pathway for me.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
I have a question around your business. So you said that you had 100K months, and I don't know. I hope you don't mind me asking this, and you don't have to answer. But what would be the profit percentage? Like, have you got a big team behind you, or do you have a lot of expenses and overheads?
Yeah. So I went through the profit margins with you, Rose. What I will say is that running an online business is extremely profitable. So you can actually run it really lean. And so we actually have a team. It's a team of 3 of us. So we only have 3 full-time employees. And actually, we're growing. We're actually going to expand next year, definitely. And so there's definitely been some growing pains with that growth level as well, right? But running an online business, I think, again, I have not ever run a brick and mortar business, so I can't compare it. All my businesses have been online, right? But again, this is the model that I've created. Not only is it sustainable for me and my energy management, but again, I've really looked at it about saying, okay, how can it actually create the most effective, how can it be the most effective, profitable business at the end of the day too? So really looking at what you're offering, what your business model looks like, being really mindful of your expenses and your bottom line, and saying, and this is part of I think the work that we do is the decisions that we make in our business, and are they aligned to our long-term strategy, to our vision, and to what we're wanting to create? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, Rose, we talk about those numbers, and the numbers are fantastic, and of course, we're all in business to make a profit. But for me, personally, I am all about the impact. And so the more that I can actually create impact in the world, that is the most fulfilling thing for me. And so if I can effectively run a well-oiled machine in terms of my business, that's ultimately going to allow me to create a bigger impact, which is the thing that matters most to me.
Brilliant. Great answer. Thank you, Casey. And I guess the other thing I'd add to that is which you already alluded to, is the energy.
Yes.
That you have got the time and the energy, and everything's in alignment, which I know it absolutely is with you.
It's massive, right, Rose? And again, I'm not afraid to say that I've done a lot of stuff, right, for trial and error. Like, honestly, lots of trial and error. Like, I've been an Amazon bestseller. I've sold product through online. I've done memberships. I've done courses. I've done one-to-one. I've done group okay, and all of it is okay, let me put this hat on. Let me try it on for size. Let me see if it fits. How does it feel? Is it cozy? Is it comfortable? Is it something that actually really sparks, makes me happy, makes my heart happy? And so these are all pieces that I've really trialed. And the more that you get to know yourself, the more you can actually make decisions around how you actually want to create your business. And I think that's a core piece of actually creating sustainable success too, because, it's so easy to fall into, I'll jump into memberships, pathway to recurring revenue, or passive income streams, create courses, and they'll just pay you in your sleep and all that kind of stuff. It's easy to fall into that. But is it really fulfilling for you at the end of the day? Because at the end of the day, all I want is peace, happiness, contentment, joy. And we're going to be in the business for the long term, right? And so every decision I make is through that lens. It doesn't make my heart happy.
Yeah. So, Casey, you shared with me earlier about the 3 Ds that contributed to your exponential growth. Can you dive into that with the rest of the audience, please.
Yes, absolutely. So I alluded to the first D, which is decisions, right, Rose? Again, it's really important, again, to just literally make a decision. So be in your quiet, listen to that inner voice, trust your intuition, and then make a decision, right? So again, that decision that I made back pre-COVID was I was going to actually stand in my power and embody and integrate my power, right? So that's the first D. The second D is then the discipline. So take it, like being disciplined with that decision. Not so, and I love this with my clients, like, are you committed or you're not committed? Because you can't be half committed, right? So there's got to be a level of discipline here. And we talked about this with you, with your walking, you know, it's that level of discipline that you show up, you've decided, you've made a decision around that. And then it's the discipline. And then from there, it's the daily devotion, right, Rose? It's the daily devotion to the actions that are actually going to fulfill that decision for you. And so that's been, again, I have 3 questions that I ask myself every day in my business. Number 1, how am I generating a sales conversation today? Number 2, how am I filling my pipeline with leads? And number 3, how am I delivering exceptional customer service today? If I tick those 3 things off every day, I know I'm heading towards the decision that I've made. And this can apply to any goal or anything. I mean, I've lost 20 kilos this year, and I applied the same thing, right? It was like a decision. I'm making the decision to lose this weight. I had some health challenges. I made the decision to lose the weight, discipline, healthy eating, exercise, commitment, and then that daily devotion to Rose. And I think that's key, is just being decisive and then taking the daily actions. At the same time, giving yourself grace and compassion as well, right?
Yeah. I love how these filter into the rest of your life as well. It's not just about business, is it? It's about your health and your wellness and everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is a coolie question. And again, you don't have to answer this, but I'm really curious. You've got the most wonderful Facebook community of, I think last time I looked, it's about 5,700.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to know how you built such an amazing Facebook group.
Yeah, great question, and more than happy to answer this. Again, Rose, I love this question because it's been such a journey of trial and error, right? When I first started my very first Facebook group, I started it because I hosted my very first summit. And you being a summit owner too, you'll understand, I started this Facebook group and I brought everyone in. And I wasn't really, and we had 4,000 women through that first summit. It was amazing, but I didn't have an intention for the group. And it just, you know, that scratchy feeling that you get when there's just like there's something off, like you can't really figure out, you can't put your finger on what is it that's really just off. But there was just a feeling that I had around this group because maybe it was hazy because I didn't have an intention and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, so I'm not afraid to burn things down. So I decided to close that business down, even though I had I don't know how many people in that Facebook group. I was like, no, it's not feeling right. The energy for me is everything. Mm-hmm. Energetically, it's not feeling right. And so it took me a couple of years to really sit with it and do I really want a Facebook group? How is this going to, how do I want to show up in the Facebook group? What's the intention of the Facebook group? How is it strategically going to fit into my business? So I started to ask myself those questions. And I was like, okay, no, this is right. I want to start the business. I want to start the Facebook group. And so I started it with, a very different energy, right? So I think that's been one of the biggest reasons that I've been able to build this business, to build the Facebook group to that size, is because I was really clear on the intention behind it, the energy behind it, and why I really wanted it. And the reason that I really wanted it, Rose, is because I wanted that deeper connection with my community. As much as I love having an email People on my email list is amazing, but I wanted that interaction. I really crave, for me, one of my biggest values is connection, right? And so I wanted to feel that connection and feel that connection in real time. And so as I built that, I think people actually felt the connection in there. I've got so much feedback that this is like, it feels like such a cozy community, even though it's the size that it still feels really connected. And I think it's because when I first started it was this energy of really showing up and really feeling connected. And then, of course, there's strategies to build the Facebook group. So where the Facebook group sits now in my funnel, and it's an opportunity for me to really nurture my community. But I go out and I leverage other people's audiences now to build that Facebook group. And that's strategically how we're doing it.
Brilliant. I love that. Thank you so much for answering that.
No worries. Open book, happy to answer. Yeah.
And I have one more question before we wrap up. Honestly, I could talk to you forever, but as you know, we're keeping these episodes to 30 minutes. So my final question, which I ask all of my podcast guests, is when you feel overwhelmed or unfocused, what do you do?
Yes, I love this question because I was really sitting with it and thinking, okay, how do I actually do this, Rose? Because again, as chronic overdoers, we do tend to try and fill our plates with so much to do, right? And so I know I have a tendency towards overwhelm, and that's what led me to burnout with the first business. So I'm really mindful now, and what I will do is I will start to feel it. One of the biggest things too that I've learned is really working on my emotional intelligence, right? So this piece where I felt honestly, I felt like I was cut off from the neck down. So I was literally all in my head and I wasn't feeling my body. Now I really practice this, and I was like, I can start to feel the overwhelm coming up, right, in my body. I feel it in my solar plexus. I'll feel it in my jaw. I'll start to actually feel it in my body. And that's a sign for me to actually stop and breathe. And I will stop and I'll take some deep breaths. And oftentimes that will be enough for me to carry on. If I haven't took myself too far over the edge, right, it will be enough for me to carry on. If it's not, in those moments of quiet, I will then ask myself, what do I need? What do I need in that moment to actually move these emotions through my body? And so that really depends. Whereas one of the things that I love to do will be walking, right? So I might hop in my car, plug in my earphones, go and do a walking meditation along the beach. It might be, Casey, just take some time out and go and watch some daytime TV and just chill out. It might be to sleep. Like, I actually sleep a lot, and I love my sleep. But yeah, I'll sleep. So it really does depend on the moment and what I'm feeling, my body, and what I need most to actually get back on track. And then I come back to the focus. What's my intention for the week? What am I trying to achieve? What are my 3 questions? What is the daily actions, the daily discipline and daily devotion that I need to go? And so I'll get back and focus that way. So hopefully that answers your question.
Oh, absolutely. I love how much you honor yourself and your body. And yeah, that's just wonderful.
It's been a game changer for me, Rose. Honestly, I can't even tell you what a game changer it's been for me.
Oh, amazing. Well, thank you so, so much, Casey. It's wonderful to talk with you today. And I know you've got a lovely lead magnet, and I'm going to pop that into the show notes along with all of the other links where people can find you, including your awesome Facebook group. So I really recommend everyone just pop on over to there. And thank you again, Casey.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It was a really fun conversation, Rose. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Sensitive CEO Show. If you enjoyed this episode, or if you think it would be useful for someone else, please leave me a review on sensitiveceo.show. Just follow the prompt in the menu. Each month, I'm offering one lucky reviewer a chance to win a 1-hour business and mindset audit with me. This in-depth audit covers the 5 pillars of your online business, and you'll walk away with super clear action steps specifically for you and your business. You'll be re-energized and motivated to step into your greatness. You'll also find all of the show notes for each episode on the website sensitiveceo.show. And while you're there, make sure you subscribe to the short and sweet newsletter. You'll get weekly recommendations and tips, especially for HSPs, empaths, and introverts. And as the name implies, the email is short and sweet. The Sensitive CEO Show, igniting your sensitive superpowers.